You know, I remember when I was in the courtroom for the sentencing hearing of the BTK killer in Kansas. It is something I will never, ever forget. And it was bind, torture, and kill. That's why he called himself BTK. Dennis Rader, the family man who viciously murdered at least 10 victims, taunting police for 30 years by sending cryptic messages to news stations while hiding in plain sight. But what was it like living next door to the BTK killer? Tonight, our special look at the killer next door.
I went ahead and tied her up and then put a bag over her head and strangled her.
The killer calls himself BTK, which stands for bind them, torture them, kill them. A pattern he has followed with most of his victims.
BTK stands for bind, torture, and kill.
I answered the door, asked me when my parents home. I told him, yeah, my mom, she's sick in bed. So he proceeded to come on in, started pulling down the blinds and turned off the TV and pulled out a gun. I looked over the door in a crack, seen my mama being stripped, taped, plastic bag over her head, rope tied around her neck.
The people who were most able to get away with these crimes for years are the ones that look beyond suspicion, who blend in well.
And then I killed him.
With me now is a special guest, Donna Berry. Donna is actually the neighbor of the BTK serial killer, Dennis Rader. You knew BTK, as we call him, Dennis Rader, bind, torture, kill, since you were 4 years old. You grew up with his children. Your backyard backs up to the Raiders. What did you observe during those years when you were actually a serial killer's backdoor neighbor?
Typically, a family man when he was with his wife and his children. He was just an all-around great guy, great personality, easy to get along with. But as soon as he put on that compliance uniform, it's like his personality would just change.
And you know, I believe that he committed a lot of murders in his compliance uniform.
Yes, you will find a homicide at Suite 43 South 13, Nancy Fox.
Nancy Fox, she was a wonderful person, and I did track her just like a predator. She was a wonderful young lady, well organized, hard worker, and I took her off.
What do you think about that, having a serial killer next door?
It's scary because Park City has always been known for being a very quiet town. Everybody knew everybody. You know, you could leave your doors unlocked at night and not have to worry. And then you find out something like this, it gives the whole shock and awe factor.
I want him to suffer as much as he made his victims suffer. But then, when I think about that, in his sick, perverted way, he'd probably find that as some kind of pleasure or reward.
Is it true that your friend saw BTK pull a 12 gauge on an animal? I think it was a kitten.
Yes, up at the city pool, and a bunch of kids playing at the park, leaving the pool, saw him pull out a shotgun and shoot, and literally blew up the kitty.
I remember when I first learned about BTK, I actually verbalized, I wonder if he ever attacked animals. And then when I found out he was a dog catcher, you're really putting the pieces of the puzzle together for me.
He killed dogs and cats in that setting, but he'd never been able to take a human being into a barn and either take photographs or do whatever he wanted to do. He puts the plastic over the windows so that nobody can see in. He tacks it up. He has a camera with him, and he takes her nude body in the church and poses her in various bondage positions.
And she screamed, and I jumped on the bed and strangled her manually.
I I know his home has been torn down. Why was it torn down?
Yes.
And how did that make you feel?
It's sad because I knew his kids, I knew his wife.
Is it something you carry with you? Because in my line of business, I'm always suspicious, I'm on guard, I'm protective of my family, my children, overly protective. And I always wonder, and now I've got you, does it make you look at the world a different way to find out that someone you thought you knew so well could carry out heinous, horrible acts on other people?
You just don't expect it.
First of all, Mr. Otero was strangled, or a bag put over his head and strangled. Then I thought he was going down, and I went over and strangled Mrs. Otero. I thought she was down. Then I strangled Josephine. I thought she was down.
So it gives you a whole new perspective on the world, that it can be anybody at any time.
You know, she was pretty upset with what's going on. So I came back and at that point in time strangled her for a death strangle at that time.
With your hands or what?
No, with a cord, with a rope.
Definitely shocked. One would think someone that was so intense in enforcing the law would not be one that would break the law.
I had never strangled anyone before, so I really didn't know how much pressure you had to put on a person or how long it would take.
Did you ever consider that he could have targeted you or your family?
We had a compliance issue with my husband, and he literally told my husband, he goes, well, let's take it inside your house and we'll settle this in there. He could have killed my husband at that time. Luckily, my husband was a big enough man that told him he ain't stepping 1 foot on my property.
I think the both of us better leave right now, and we better get down on our knees and thank the Lord that he didn't get into that house, kill your husband, and wait for you to get home.
BTK is arrested.
Now that I've confessed, put myself out to let everybody know what's going on, I expect to heal and to have life.
Don't let this monster have any comforts as he lives out his remaining years in prison. He isn't worthy.
When the stories about him began to surface, he wanted to take advantage of that, and that was his vulnerability. He wanted to be famous, and this was his big shot.
Finally, I final apologize to the victims' families. There's no way that I can ever repay them. That's all, sir.